Welcome to another episode of Real with Ryan. This is the 6th episode of my coding journey, and hopefully this episode will be really exciting. In the last 5 episodes, there's been a lot of learning, everything from JavaScript, TypeScript, HTML, CSS, learning Angular framework, and in the last episode I was learning about Java, the basics to coding in Java, and in this episode we are still in Java. But one of the things we are learning now is not just how to write code and how code works, but how to code in a way that would be similar to coding in a real job. And part of that has to do with your ability to read code. If you're a web developer or a developer in general, you'll know that when you're in the workplace, you almost do more reading of code than you do code yourself. As a developer, you have to be able to understand other people's code, understand what's happening in it, be able to fix it if it breaks, or in this case, code on top of it and build new features on top of an existing code base. So right now, our assignment for LaunchCode is to read through a whole bunch of code and develop a few features on top of this code. And let me just show you. Like I said, in this assignment, we have a lot of code that has been given to us, and what it does is search through a bunch of data. So in this assignment, we were given a bunch of data. This is a CSV, and I applied a little rainbow coloring to it, but all of this data is in a CSV, and these are basically jobs. So let's just look through one of these data points or lines. So, the position would be junior data analyst. The employer would be Lockerdome and out of St. Louis, So that was all the data, and here is the main file of this, and it's a tech jobs class that contains our main class, so basically what's running all of this. Using hash maps, array maps, and, doing a decent amount of validation, getting user input, calling these functions, and also calling functions within, the other classes. But most of that code was already given to us. It's quite a lot, and, it's fairly complex. I would have struggled to create something this in-depth myself, but this is what the application does. So we're looking down here where the mouse is, and so it can search through these jobs. So you enter in, by search. So we want to see, how about by location? And it lists out all the locations. So what we were supposed to do in this is we were given this code that wasn't quite complete. So I showed you how it would list out jobs, but one of the functions hadn't been built yet, and that was the search function. So if we're running down code here, it will search. We hit 0 to do search, and then now we can hit a button, choose the location, employer, whatever, and in this case we picked location, and I want to search for jobs within St. Louis. So let's see if did I spell that right? No, I'll just do Saint because I think that'll work. So now it searches all those jobs and it finds me each place that was contained within St. Louis. And so I built out this function myself, which I'm really happy about. And that would be the print jobs function. And this is printing the search function here. So in this function, what we had to do is first make sure that the search was correct. We did that by checking to see if some jobs was empty or not, or if there was any jobs that matched this. To do this, we used 2 nested loops to iterate through the data that it's stored in a separate class, and then display it. So in this project, there's a lot more stuff that we're going to be doing, a couple more functions that we're going to be building out, but that really is the chunk of it. So this assignment was more about reading other code, understanding what's happening, what are the variables doing, how can we utilize the data and the variables already built for us, and then do stuff with that. So there's a few more things I'll code out here and hopefully have a fun working program here at the end. On our last assignment, I had one clip about how we were supposed to be reading code and trying to add code to it. And so I finished that assignment. It was very hard, but now we're on another assignment that does a lot of the same. I'm not going to dive into all this code. It's too small for you to read, but we have a whole bunch of code, a whole bunch of classes within a package, and this is representing some code that isn't fully complete. So it's a situation where, we imagine we're in a workplace, someone did kind of like the base code for something, the basic elements, getting something working, but there needs to be a lot of stuff added to this code to make it complete. We're still coding in Java, but now it's my job to go in, learn this code, read through it, figure out how everything works together, and then go into the comments and go and add some of the features that are currently missing and make this code more robust. So we're really diving into object-oriented programming and how can we make these programs work in an object-oriented way. We're going to be implementing some testing within Java and do some test-driven development as well as unit testing, and then add just some more robust features to the code. So as I go through this and add some of these features, add some of these tests, I'll make some clips along the way, but it's really, more or less code that you would perhaps expect in the workplace. So really exciting there. Some of the outputs of this code isn't nearly as exciting as some of the visual stuff we've done in the past, but the fact that it's looking more kind of like day-to-day code is really pretty cool. So have some clips, excited for what we can get done here. In this assignment, we have created a ton of tests, but have also done some awesome stuff with types of interfaces or abstract classes. So diving into some of the object-oriented programming concepts and implementing that into Java. So I was just mentioning how we made some tests, and I'm going to show you that test file. So we've created a whole bunch of tests, and this is a application where you're creating new jobs. And a job contains different classes such as employers, location, position, competency, things of that nature. And we wanted to test to make sure everything is being created properly, being set, tested, and retrieved properly. So, I came down and made all of these different types of tests. Here is just a test. But then, testing some of the setters, testing our IDs, which would be a static field, making sure that if there's two separate jobs that they don't have the same ID. We're creating a test that says all of the fields are properly set and that they are get properly, they're get and set properly. So we're using the assert equals there. And then we also have some other stuff. So, we're also creating, custom toString methods so that when we call this class, it can be, compiled in a string and returned as a string. So, making sure that there's a new line at the beginning of and the end of the strings, and then also making sure that the string matches what we would expect it to look like. And then we also add some, validation in here. And there's probably a much better and cleaner way to do this. But basically what all of this does is run through multiple cases to see, if a field is left blank, does the code handle it appropriately? So let me just run all of these tests. And you can see popping up at the bottom all of the tests passed. So, we can know that, if we look here, that all of the tests are, now passing, in, actual code. If are on the job or something like that, something messed up, we would be able to come down and look at the name of the test, which one failed, and be able to tell where's my code failing, where do I need to go and refactor. So really awesome stuff with test-driven development there. I also wanted to call out some of the abstract classes that we're making. So, I mentioned we have a full job class, and within the job class, there are, classes in it or objects. So we have, core competency, employer location, and let me just click through these files. You can see that there's just a little bit of code. It doesn't matter what it says right now, but clicking through a couple of these files, there's not a ton of code. And that's because they are extending an abstract class called job field. They are all fields of a job. And so I'll show you job field. So this is our abstract class job field, and all of the classes employer, position, competency, location are all pretty much the same exact version. They're a subclass, or they extend job field. So this is the parent class, and since all of these classes are pretty much identical, we can use inheritance to pass these fields and functionalities into the child classes, and it really cleans up the code and makes things easy, since all of those will be using all of these things within job field. So we have the IDs are getting set. They're all using a string of a value. We're calling the ID, we're incrementing that, setting the ID. We have the pretty simple two-string functions that are just returning the value in each of these classes. And we're also setting a equal. So, we have a custom equals field, which means, we are checking to see if things are equal, if their IDs equal. So if any other fields match, then it's not considered equal. This says that if the IDs match, they are. And then, we have our custom getters and setters. So that works and is set in this parent class, which is the abstract job field class, and is inherited by all those subclasses, which means that that's why instead of having this kind of code written in all of those classes, we can just write it once and kind of pass that to the children. And, here is our job class. So this is the class that's calling all the others. And, this has a decent amount more code. We have to initialize the employers, locations, the other classes, as well as the ID. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of getters and setters, because from this class, we want to be able to get and set the values in these other classes. And then it does have some of the same things. So, an equals, but lots of the code in this program is actually in this two-string function. So whenever we call the job class, we say, hey, code, I want to see an instance of a job. And then, what we want to do is convert that to a string so we can return it. And so this is where a lot of validation is going to be happening. So, if all of these are blank, then it will return, this job does not seem to exist. And then we have some different ifs, if statement, some validation. If individual fields are blank, then data isn't available for that field. And then we have the return string and how it's formatted. So that's kind of the job class. And now we can take a look at main, which is going to be running all this. We've already checked the code. We've checked that the tests are passing. So let's actually see what this looks like when implemented. So, what we have is the main class, and we have a handful of jobs. So we've just got some test jobs. You can notice job 3 has a blank employer value. Job 4, all of the values are going to be blank. And then we're creating an array list of jobs and then, printing those out. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, and we ran it, and this is what it looks like. So it goes through and it prints out these jobs according to our, two-string method. And so you can see, job 1 prints out well, job 2 prints out, well, job 3, that's the one that had a blank employer class, or employer field, so we filled that with data is not available. And then job 4, where this should be, all of the fields were blank. So that's where if statement kicked in. It said, oops, this job does not seem to exist. So this was another excellent episode. We dove in a lot into Java, so pretty much all Java, and kind of diving more into object-oriented programming and really trying to understand those kind of 4 pillars, the concepts of object-oriented programming. How can we handle classes more to make our code, more efficient, more, packageable, more protected, and operate in a way that should be, helpful and kind of seen in a workplace. So this was a really exciting episode and some exciting concepts. At the beginning of this episode, I was struggling a lot, but as I started working on this project and putting some of the testing in place and playing with passing different classes to each other and getting fields and values, things started to seem to really click for me here. So at the end of this, feeling a lot better about Java. Definitely have a really, really long way to go. Nowhere close to, fully understanding it and being, a full Java developer, but took some good strides in the last few weeks, and I'm happy with the output. So excited for the coding to come. We only have a few months left. But thank you so much for watching another episode of Real with Ryan. Thank you for joining along with me on this journey to learn code. And as always, thank you for keeping it real with Ryan.